pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of charter schools advisory boards to ensure the existence of high quality charter schools in North Carolina. Board members are reminded it is our duty to abstain from conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the advisory board. Any member of the advisory board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters before us this meeting?
The amendment for Movement East, I'll need to recuse from that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Turner. And if at any time during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict, please bring those to my attention. It will be your duty to abstain from voting on the matter and participating in discussion. All right, great. So we are going to amend the agenda. Unanimous consent, I assume. We're going to handle amendments now prior to the full interviews. So I'm going to let Ms. Beccaro handle the amendments.
All right, good morning. We have a few amendments today. Let's go ahead and start with a simple one. This is Beargrass Charter School, and they are seeking to amend their mission by simply adding one additional word, term, I guess, post-secondary institutions. Currently, the mission of Beargrass Charter School, in partnership with family and community, is to enhance the quality of life of all students by ensuring they possess the competencies to achieve academic success in a technological world. Our collaboration with East Carolina University will strengthen the focus on mathematics and science throughout the curriculum. They are adding with East Carolina University and other post-secondary institutions.
Really long mission statement.
I was gonna say, it's a little
Lengthy
weird.
mission.
It's theirs. I
That's
move
their
we,
vision, not really the mission statement.
It's two
Either
different
way.
sentences, really.
either way, I move we approve it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I
Opposed?
mean, that's on them if they wanna have that mouthful.
All right. Second one is Movement East School. So Movement East is currently in a delay. They are set to open this upcoming fall in Mecklenburg County, and they have a couple requests. This is probably familiar to you because I believe this is the fourth amendment I brought to you for this school. You had one just last month for an enrollment request. This one is permission to revise their weighted lottery. So they have already previously been approved for a weighted lottery program. They are revising that, and I will explain that in a second. They are also changing the grades served throughout the entire, charter, from K to 8 to K to 6. So last month, they were approved from the state board to decrease their enrollment, and kind of along with that, they are decreasing the size of the school in general. And then they would like to change the name of the school from Movement School East to Movement School Eastland. So those are all kind of wrapped up together. The weighted lottery policy, the original one that was approved was with a 50% goal of economically disadvantaged students. They are doing something a little bit different now, and they are trying to implement a weighted lottery for economic diversity, which would have 60% of the students qualifying for free or reduced lunch and 40% not qualifying. So it's a little bit different than other policy we've seen, but they've done a lot of research into it, and they're kind of modeling it off of other states that have done similar weighted lottery policies, and it will still follow the same policies we have in North Carolina in terms of how they qualify students and the criteria they use, and following all legal lottery requirements.
So what you're saying is they set aside 60% of the seats, but then they set aside the other 40% for the students that are not free and reduced.
Exactly.
So it's basically a weighted lottery with 60%. So you're gonna have two lotteries, and then if they don't fill all those, then they're gonna have the third lottery to fill in just randomly. So they could have
65%? Are they? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
I
not, I
understand what you
mean,
mean.
it's not an exact science, so whether they actually get that 60 and 40%, just like any of the weighted lotteries that we see, it remains to be seen. But they have chosen those numbers based on CMS, where approximately 60% of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch and 40% do not. So that's what they're attempting to do. It's also based off of a model from the Diverse by Design school movement. So it's something that has been done in other states, but we haven't seen it here.
I move we recommend approval of these amendments.
Second.
All right. Properly moved in second. Any discussion?
Just a couple questions.
Yeah.
So the grade span is gonna stop at sixth grade?
Yes.
So
And-
they're not going to 8th grade?
No, they want to go to 6th grade only. And last month they had a.
Is the other school going to 8th grade? That's interesting.
Last month they had, amendment approved to lower their enrollment, so in general, they're decreasing in size.
Could we ask Cheryl to comment, even though she's recused from the, could we, I mean, do you know, just out of curiosity, do you know?
Whether they're going to sixth grade
No,
or whether,
why they're going to 6th grade only?
no.
Okay.
I do know in talking to the school, leader and he's, I don't know if he's the board chair, but I believe his name is Tim Hurley.
Yeah, he's the executive director of both schools. Yeah.
Okay, I believe it has something to do with just wanting to kind of decrease size and having I believe they were awarded the grant. So having that additional money is allowing them to decrease and focus on smaller size.
Oh, I just wanted to
Having the increased money.
to bring another example to the table about a new CMO that we approved. Movement was a new CMO a couple of years ago, but was backed by, for those board members that are new, kind of when you think about like the foil kind of to the discussion yesterday. Movement has the company Movement Mortgage is basically we had the president of the CEO who's a former Carolina Panther football player. You know, Movement is one of the fastest growing mortgage companies in the country. He came, presented, basically their vision is to give away as much of their profits as they can. One of the things they founded was trying to replicate an existing model, take everything from Sugar Creek. You know, there's a story to, and so they put a ton of money right into the Movement School. They put the backing of the organization. The company does their marketing. I mean, it was so when we talk about like, okay, we're gonna have a CMO come in. What do they bring to the table? That is a great example of a brand new CMO that was replicating a proven model from Sugar Creek, but then also bringing a lot to the table. So I just think that context can be, especially for new board members to kind of, when we think about a school that was approved wholeheartedly with a new CMO in the state.
Did they give you any reason for East Land instead of East?
I believe it, I don't know, I'm not really familiar with CMS, but I believe it has to do with the neighborhood, like
It's
the name.
actually literally
Yeah.
located across the street from where Eastland Mall used to be.
Yeah.
So it's
Historic.
Yeah, so it's a historic area.
I mean, I think this is not a small amendment when we think about, this is kind of another step in the kind of weighted lottery move to have, charter schools that are trying to be even more intentional to reflect the diversity of the population in the schools surrounding them, which I think is a good thing given the, a lot of the commentary is, charter schools are inherently trying to segregate, so, I mean, I think this is exciting. Eric, I don't want to put you on the spot. Have you read this proposal? Have they talked to you? I mean, I think legally, based on their conversations with their lawyers, with what, it's based on some other models where they're doing this. but it's kind of a new take on the weighted lottery. I think the state board will be in favor of it, so I don't anticipate an issue there.
It's not an issue that bubbled to legal through
Yeah.
through OCS, but it is a unique approach, and you know this group is
We've had
working to develop some best practices and innovation. I know Dave's
We've had
team's
quite
thought
a
a lot
few
about it.
internal conversations about weighted lottery now that we're having more and more schools doing
Yeah.
it. Between Ashley, myself, Clear, and Jay, trying to give better guidance on the parameters of weighted lottery. At first, we were just so happy that they were doing it that, you know, we were, as long as it fell into the goal of increasing diversity, we said, okay, we didn't want to give schools an unfunded mandate where they would have had to hire somebody to do their lotteries, but now that we're having so many, we're having internal discussions about giving much more guidance and hopefully some assistance in their implementation of it.
Yeah, that
We
was
need to
gonna,
get away from setting seats aside to actually being done electronically, where you're weighted that individual student to get a better chance of getting in. Federal guidelines say we should not be setting aside seats. With some of our smaller schools, that was really the easiest way for them to do it. So we hope in a couple months to be able to come, I don't know if we can do it in couple months, but to come back with some better guidelines to CSAB that we can get State Board to approve.
Yeah, I think to remember with the weighted lottery is there's only certain things that you can't do a weighted lottery on. You can't do it on race, you can't do it on sex, you can't do it on religion. Basically those things that are federally protected classes, but you could do it, you know, basically on anything else. I mean, it's open, so I mean, I think people can be innovative. It doesn't have to just be economically disadvantaged or free or reduced lunch. I mean, I remember when it was moving through the legislature, one of the legislators asked, so they could just say only we're going to open up and set aside seats for Division I caliber football players, and I was like, legally, could you do that? Yes. Is the state board ever going to approve that? No. And so you could take everything to an extreme, but I think there's a lot of play that these people have to be innovative with their weighted lottery of how they want to impact the mission of their school.
The federal guidelines are pretty specific about what does qualify. A football team would not be, meet the federal guidelines, but you're exactly right, Stephen, that should be taken advantage if we're not careful. But we hope to come up with some stronger guidelines and better clarification to our schools of what they can do and can't do.
Well, the federal guidelines, you're talking about the federal guidelines in relation to the CSP grant, right?
Federal guidelines for that, yes, and what they consider a weighted lottery.
Yeah.
I'm also noticing more schools as they have the funds available using, systems and companies that will assist them with coming up with better algorithms and that sort of thing to actually do the lottery, which I think is a move in the right direction as opposed to, smaller schools that are just getting started trying to figure it out using Excel and that sort of thing.
so question on that. I mean, so it sounds like your team is going to be giving more guidance, because one concern I have is people saying they're going to do the weighted lottery and then they're not doing it, or kind of,
We are starting to collect through Epicenter data every year. We're going to start it this year, where each school that is approved for a weighted lottery will have to provide our office data in terms of, did they have a lottery this year? What were the results of the weighted lottery? That sort of thing. And when they're approved, the approval letter that I give them includes specific instructions on the type of data that they need to be keeping. Certain data they cannot keep, but what data they need to be keeping in terms of how many students went through the weighted lottery, how many were accepted, that sort of thing, so that we can start compiling that.
Yeah, because my understanding is you just, like, if you have a pool of names, the students that are ED, their names get in the pool 2 times or 3 times.
Could be, it depends on what the ratio is. It could be weighted 1.25, 1.5. That's up
So
to
it
the
just
school. That's what's
depends.
in the policy that Ashley's talking about.
it's complicated though.
It can be really complicated.
Yes.
That's what I'm glad you guys are picking that up, because if we have the weighted lottery and the results do not come out the way that we anticipate them to come out with more economically disadvantaged or whatever, I think there's gonna be a lot of questions.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the schools that have been doing it for the longest, like Central Park and Durham, there's data clearly shows that their economically disadvantaged population is increasing.
Okay.
So I think a lot of Charlotte Lab School, I think, if you look at the schools that have been doing it for a while, it's showing that it's working.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of unique because this is about having not only students that are low income, but also students that are not low income.
Educationally disadvantaged students is what can also be, could be a category, which is.
But in this lottery, they're saying they're trying to ensure it's balanced.
Right.
Anyways, I guess as long as it's legal, and I'm obviously going to support it. I think definitely something to get more for OCS. Obviously, it sounds like you guys are working on that. One item I would love Austin Charter Schools to do some research into. Is there a vendor? I mean, I guess you can't recommend vendors. It's hard because I get a lot of emails about people. There's a lot of hacks, people that are just trying to make money. Maybe that's, or if you. I wish you all could say, hey, this is a legitimate operation versus others. Maybe that's for the association to tell us, kind of like, here's like the 3 people that we've researched and do lotteries effectively and at a cost that is reasonable for a school, not trying to rip somebody off, because there's a lot of people that are trying to rip people off out there.
Our advice has been that you can do it on your own. We hope to be able to give you some help on being able to do it on your own. And if somebody wants to use one of these vendors, obviously they can. But we don't want to set up a system that it's going to be so complicated that they're going to have to use a vendor. So, and we think we're moving in that direction, and hopefully we'll come back with you, see if it's something in it.
So do we know that their plan is legal?
Tell you what, no doubt the questions concerning this particular proposed amendment are going to be the similar questions that the state board will ask. So legal will continue to vet this and provide additional updates. But if you all want to provide a preliminary blessings, certainly we can add a caveat that gets further, closer review, and that additional information is provided to the state board as it considers CSAB's recommendation with respect to this weighted lottery.
Okay, great. So I'll call for a vote. We have a motion moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Cheryl Turner abstaining or recused. All right, great.
Okay, we have several expansion and enrollment requests. It's that time of year. So let's start with the enrollment request. According to statute, a school that is not low performing can grow up to 30% each year in terms of enrollment. If they want to grow over 30%, then they need to meet certain requirements and receive state board approval. Both of the schools that I'm bringing before you today have met all the requirements, so it's just a matter of your recommendation and then bringing it to state board. The first school is Sandhills Theater Arts Renaissance School, otherwise known as STARS. They currently have 575 students in attendance and would like to apply for a 40% enrollment increase. They currently have over 600 students on their waiting list, so it's a matter of them wanting to open up an additional grade or an additional class for each grade level, which would give them the opportunity to allow more students to enroll. And they are a B school. They have been operating for many years, and they've doubled in size over the last 9 years. The next, any questions on STARS?
Where are they located, Ashley?
They are located in Bass.
Why do they want to get? Why? Why 40%? Why is 30% not enough?
Because they want, well, because they have a huge, wait list, that's one thing, but they also want to, like, add an additional class for each grade level, so they can enroll more students,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. And they're one of our higher performing
Did the
schools.
same thing in my head.
The next school is Piedmont Community Charter School. And they are also applying for a 40% enrollment. Their current enrollment is 1,354. They have a current wait list of over 1,200 students in grades K to 12. And due to the lack of space they've had in their current facility, less than 10% of applications have been awarded seats. They are opening up a new high school facility in this upcoming August, so that will allow them to increase their enrollment. They have been a B school for the last 3 years, and they've exceeded growth for the last 2 years. And they're in Gastonia. So those are the two enrollment increases. Why don't we go ahead and vote on those two, and then I'll go into the high school expansions, if that works.
I move we approve, or we recommend approval.
A second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We have two high school expansion requests. So the first is from Sally B. Howard. They would, under statute, they would be able to expand like one additional year, but they are opening high school next year, and they want to expand into 9th and 10th the same year, which is why they require an amendment. They have been open since 1997, so one of the first charter schools. They serve K to 8 students in Wilson County, and arts is, you know, the focus of their curriculum. They have an ADM of 1,048, and they have received a school report card grade of a B for the last 3 years in math, science, and reading. They also serve a very high level number of economically disadvantaged students and minorities. So they are asking to expand next year into 9th and 10th, and then going forward, they would expand 1 year up until 12th grade. They're just adding an addition of 100 students, so it's not a huge enrollment increase, but they do need this amendment approved because they're doing 2 grades at one time.
Don't they have one of the largest Hispanic populations
They
of
do.
charter schools?
Yep.
Yeah, it's 60% African American and 39% Hispanic.
If
It's
you
one of
if
the
you
best
were
schools in
watching
the
the
state.
news, if you're watching the news earlier this morning, great piece on Spectrum News about Sally B. Howard and their expansion. Really well done. So pull it up and take a look at it. Phenomenal school.
Yeah, and the materials that I posted on eBoard are, they really kind of spelled out what they plan for their high school, and they have some interesting instructional facets. And they're following the Future Ready core requirements and occupational course study when needed. So they're doing everything they need to do to meet the high school requirements.
I'm excited about Sally B. Howard's growth. Our current plan is taking the entire Healthy Start Academy staff there and on our January data day to see what they have going on, because I mean, it's a school that has such a high economically disadvantaged population and is earning a B is somebody that we want to learn from. But Rant, if I could have take a moment to share a story. Interesting. A few years ago, the principal of Sally B. Howard, and some of you are probably aware of this, reached out to Durham School of the Arts because they're an arts-focused school. Durham School of the Arts is a high school in Durham, and they asked, you know, they're beginning the planning for this high school, and they sent an email to request the opportunity to come visit Durham School of the Arts and just learn from what they were doing. Received a scathing email back from the principal, and basically saying they were not going to allow them to come visit, and they would not share any of their intellectual property or anything that they have or anything that they've learned or all the time that and the money that Durham Public Schools has spent gathering and what they've learned, and that referred them to some articles about how terrible charter schools were. And So quite sad. And you know, I'm certain I know Sally B. Howard's leader, and I'm sure that she would Miss Dr. Woodard would certainly welcome Durham Schools of the Arts should they ever want to go visit Sally B. Howard. So it just, you know, it is real, and I think it's important to note that, you know, you have schools that are, you know, we hear a lot in the media about, you know, not wanting to share resources, you know, we're not, charter schools don't want to collaborate. I think on the ground, principals want to collaborate. This is a great example of a principal reaching out and saying, hey, what can we learn from a public school? And then being basically shot down, and then, you know, but that's not going to make it into the news. So I just thought I would share that with with all of you, because I have not forgotten that. Really unfortunate.
I think at some point though.
Unfortunate for me too, as a Durham resident, you know.
Because oftentimes that does come up in state board meeting about whether we're collaborating with one another and who's not doing it and who is doing it. And Dave, if you see that story is appropriate, you know, let's make sure they know that we're trying.
And that's not, you know, that every leader is different. I have some principals in Durham that we trade all kinds of ideas and secrets back and forth who run Durham Public Schools. But I you know, it's exciting to know that, to see a school like Sally B. Howard growing, becoming a high school. I think it's great for the state. They have come a long way. They're another one of these schools that's been in it for a really long time and kind of crossed that threshold into moving low-income kids into a level that, frankly, that there's not many other schools that are getting it done like they are. So.
Especially in that area.
Yeah, in a rural area. Yeah.
They're a great
And
example.
really, people should be, traditional public schools should be going to see them.
They're a great example of how critical the arts are in any school program, and to never cut that at the expense of, you know, other things. I mean, it's so critical what they do.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept this amendment.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, we have one more. This is from Hobgood Charter School, which you probably remember because they just opened this year. Actually, this is their first year. So in order for them to expand, they need approval. And they are K-8. It's a small school. They serve 225 students currently. And they are seeking to expand into high school. They would like to add 9th and 10th grade next year. They have submitted, you know, their plan for expansion. Their enrollment, they aren't anticipating actually increasing based on what they had originally in their charter application. They're just adding those additional grades. And they are following the Future Ready course requirements. They plan on, if this is approved, they plan on increasing staff by adding an EC teacher to support the occupational course of study as needed, an additional ECTA, and a guidance counselor to assist with all of the high school course selection and transcript type of needs. They also have worked to make sure that transportation is not a barrier for any students, and they are purchasing 2 buses, and it included $50,000 in their new budget to include what's needed for transportation.
And so we're only having to vote because they're expanding 10th
Two
grade as
grades.
well, right?
Well, and also because it's their second year, so under the statute, you have to have been, if it's not in your charter, you have to have been operating for 3 years.
Before you can expand a grade. Well, I move we approve it.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
If I can add to that, anytime a K-8 school is requesting to move into a high school, our office is requiring that they send us a course sequence. And like when Ashley was talking about the college and career ready, we want to make sure that they understand what North Carolina high school graduation requirements are. So we're asking for that with this each amendment for any K-8 school or 6-8 school that wants to go into high school. We're making sure that they understand what the North Carolina high school graduation requirements are. Okay.
That's it.
All right, great. Thank you, Ms. Becerra. And it is 9:31, so we're only 10 minutes behind. We're ready for Dr. Williams to kick off with Carolina Royal Academy. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like for me to bypass the application update that I did yesterday and just go right into the introduction of Carolina Royal?
I think if you're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The first applicant group appearing before you today represents Carolina Royal Academy. They are proposing to locate in Chatham County. Their proposed enrollment is 525 students in grades K through 6 in year 1, 650 students in grades K through 7 in year 2, 775 students in grades K through 8 in year 3, 825 students in grades K through 8 in year 4, 900 students in grades K through 8 in year 5, at which time they will be at capacity. The LEA has not submitted an impact statement and no due diligence has been requested. This applicant group has not made any special requests and is also not a repeat applicant. However, they have received assistance from Greg Senders and provided a fee for said assistance. They are not partnering with an EMO or CMO. After some deliberation, the application has been deemed complete.
All right.
So, I think I've got this. Yeah, I've got this one. All right, we'll have the board come up and just briefly introduce yourself. And then we're gonna talk about the application for a little while, then we'll have some questions for you, and then we'll deliberate and make a recommendation.
All right, thank you. My name is John Norwood. I'm the board chair. We're here today to discuss, of course, the proposal for the K through 8 charter school, Carolina Royal Academy, to be located in eastern Chatham County. Thank you for the opportunity for us to come for a second time, for the second interview in front of you guys. We would be very pleased if at the end of the interview and discussion, we could have a unanimous recommendation for approval to the state board. It's been several weeks since our first interview, and so that you may be reacquainted with us, since it's been a while, I'd like to introduce myself and give the other members a chance to reintroduce themselves as well. Each person is going to explain what they bring to the table and what their unique qualifications are to serve on the board. And we take this charge very seriously. We understand that we are responsible for the education of 500 and growing students. We understand that you are entrusting to us a very large sum of money generated from the North Carolina taxpayers. And we take that very seriously. And after the brief introductions, I'd like to give you guys, I'd like to come back and give you guys an update on what we have been doing since the first interview. My name is John Norwood. I am the North Raleigh Market President of North State Bank. I've been in banking for 27 years. 24 of them have been here in the Triangle. I am serving on the board because I feel that I can bring value to the school and ultimately to the students due to my experience in the real estate industry, construction management, construction oversight, and financial feasibility. For me personally, I'm a recent empty nester, and I have some extra time to dedicate to this type of a program. Also for me personally, I, as a banker in my business development activities, I call on charter schools. I have met with several charter schools. I have 2 charter schools who are actual customers, and I feel that by serving in this capacity, it's going to allow me to gain valuable insights from an insider to be more effective at calling on additional charter schools and serving my existing customers as a better banker. So now, I'm going to allow each of the board members to come up and reintroduce themselves before I give you guys an update on what we've been doing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason New. I joined board of CRA as founder and CEO of CAML Academy, which stands for Computing and Machine Learning Academy. So 5 years ago, I started Academy teaching coding, artificial intelligence, and other computer science and STEM-related programs to K-12 students. So I involved in daily operation, teachers training, management, curriculum development, and also teaching on campus, our campus, and other private and public schools in RTP area. So by serving on the board of CRA, I believe I can bring in my experience and my expertise as 18 years of software engineer, 6 years college computer science teaching, and 5 years K-12 computer science teaching to the school, and provide STEM education, especially computer science education. I believe more than 90% of parents believe it is very important to next generation. So provide the opportunity, this important opportunity to more students. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Wang Chen. I'm from the RTPCC, and it's the North Carolina office. And we have been having the operating the global education for many years with the K-12 students. We're doing the teacher training and the exchange students program. And for this team and this charter school, I'll be bringing some global education information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Greg Bounds. I'm the CEO of Goshen Medical Center, been there since 2001. I'm back home running a community health center, it's a nonprofit, and we've grown from 3 to now 35 sites in 12 counties. And I guess I'm on the board because I did grow up in that rural county where Goshen is centered. I came out of Duplin County Schools, North Duplin High School, somehow got into Davidson College, went on and got a PhD from the University of Tennessee, a master's in theological studies at Harvard Divinity School. I've been a professor at various colleges and universities, filling in or full-time, working at the University of Tennessee, Davidson College, Queens, in Charlotte, UNC System, UNC Charlotte, and Harvard Business School. So I bring some academic credentials, and also understand what it takes for a kid coming out of a rural environment to make it into a highly challenging academic environment, how they have to prepare themselves. In fact, I've got 5 sons. One of my sons came out of Duplin County and came to the School of Science and Math. One of the things that our Executive Director, Joe Zhao, and I have done is met with the Chancellor at the School of Science and Math. My son's a recent grad there, but we will maintain, and so is Joe's daughter. But we hope to maintain and have a pledge from them to maintain advisory relationship. Our goal for these rural kids in Chatham County is to give them the opportunities that a lot of kids get in the bigger schools, in more privileged communities. We understand, I particularly understand what it takes to get a kid ready, and that's something that's going to be very important to our mission, is to give not only international experiences, possibly exchange experiences, but the most advanced science and engineering technology background we can, get them ready to succeed in the world. And that's probably primarily why I'm here. Also, I've been pretty good at fundraising, and that's going to be an integral part of what we do to do things at the highest caliber for this community that we can do.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Guerrier. Born and raised originally in New York, and now live in Durham for about 25 years now. I came down here to open up an architectural practice. It was successful, but then I was prompted by UNC Chapel Hill to join into their huge bond program that they got from the state, roughly about $1.2 billion, and then participated in that, moving as a state representative as well as a capital project coordinator. Then my career moved to Wake Tech Community College, where I've served there at a similar capacity, but as Director of Design and Construction. Now I'm in the process of transitioning back into my roots, kind of a homecoming back to Durham, working with a Triangle area firm doing architectural engineering, and again in higher education. Most of my experience, and almost all of it, has been in what I call community practice, which has been K through 12, higher education, nonprofit, and civic. My focus now is to serve them and serve the community of North Carolina at a greater capacity, reaching out to many different aspects and architectural types across the state. My family is a byproduct of both the public school system and the charter school system. My daughters went to Voyager Academy in Durham, North Carolina, from the grades of 3 through 12. Had a great experience there, and now they are also attending Wake Tech Community College. Will be moving to an HBCU of their choice, and then after that, probably going to either Duke or UNC. So I solicit your prayers for financial blessings in order to support them on that. My added value that I bring to the board is leadership, again, in K through 12 and higher education, leadership in public and private planning with design and construction. I will be providing oversight for the facilities development, targeting responsibilities for programming to meet the academic and recreational pursuit of CRA, evaluation of design, schedule, and budget, construction delivery process, and then another component which I'm very familiar with is the historically underutilized business component, where I'll be managing and providing oversight for diversity, inclusion, and equity for small businesses and minority businesses with this project. So I thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning. My name's Greg Senders, and I've served as a consultant to this board. It's been a pleasure to work with them. I'd just like to make one clarification, to the introduction by Dr. Williams. I've not accepted any fee. There's no promise of future work with this. This board asked me to help them based on my experience and the fact that I've opened 7 schools in 3 years, supported 10 others, and helped many others in North Carolina. So we look forward to interview today, and just thank you for your time.
I think she got that from the application because it says a fee was provided on the application. So thanks for clarifying that. If you can just real quickly tell us what you did, because we allotted 5 minutes for introduction and y'all are 13 minutes in. So
I'll be as brief as I can, as quick as I can. We've been busy.
you got 2 minutes.
Okay. In addition to our 5-person board of directors, we've hired a very experienced charter school. We've solicited help from a very experienced charter school consultant. We have deliberately kept the board to a minimum just to facilitate decisions and coordination. You will notice that we do not have a member of the board of directors from Chatham County. We have a hand-in-hand strategy of enrollment and getting people from Chatham County on the board. We have created an advisory committee. The advisory committee we already have 6 people who are signed up to join that committee, and we can talk about who they are later in our interview session, but 4 of them are residents, and we have about 8 more people who are on standby to help as needed, and most of those are in fact residents. We have had lots of meetings in Chatham County. We have met, we have done community grassroots outreach. We have had information sessions at local churches. We've met with the president of the Chatham County Economic Development, town of Pittsburgh officials, Chatham County managers, Chatham Park developer. And one piece about the advisory committee, we see the advisory committee as a grounds for bringing on an additional board member. I've had an experience where we've, other nonprofits have brought in board members too quickly and regretted that, but now we can see them actually in action, and we can see their level of commitment and what they bring before we offer them an invitation to be on the board. Marketing, we've done, our Facebook page is ready, our website is under development, we have plans for direct mail, we have plans to hire a marketing consultant, we're going to leverage the advisory committee. We've done really good work on the facility. We have found 2 very good sites right on Highway 64, which is an east-west 4-lane divided highway that is in the center of 3 distinct population centers. One, Pittsboro and Chatham Park. The other, Apex. The other in Cary. We've done good due diligence on the site. It has excellent visibility, excellent commuter access, municipal water, high-speed internet. It's got enough land for the recreational facilities, in addition to a septic tank system. This is a rural area, but it is developed as far as infrastructure and rooftops, and it is experiencing explosive growth because of the highway access, namely the highway that we're going to be situated on. I liken that to my hometown of Charlotte and Union County. I've seen Weddington have explosive growth in the last few years, as a lot of people have decided to live in the Weddington area but commute into Charlotte or Monroe or what have you. I'll leave the building design details to our expert here, but as far as the budget goes, we have a budget in the proposal. We're going to target 15 to 20% of the gross revenues to go toward facilities expense. We have trusted our consultant, Greg, to help with that. Our curriculum, we have 4-part curriculum: core knowledge, Singapore math, computer science, and global education. We obviously are too early.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I thought you were just going to tell us what you've done since you started. We know what's in your application.
Okay.
All right, we're going to talk about your application for a while. Then we'll call you back up.
All right.
To talk to us. Yeah, so you can be seated because this will probably take us 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll start asking you questions. All right. So let's start off with the application. We did see, it's got the inquiry-based learning and the core knowledge, Singapore math. They do have aggressive goals. It was basically their goal was the LEA plus 20%. Anybody else have anything else that they want to discuss on mission, purposes, and goals?
The numbers, I think the numbers are really high.
Yeah.
And I don't see support where they've developed the support that there's really a demand for that to get that many kids. Those are really high numbers.
That was my concern, because I didn't see a survey or anything. There was just a letter of endorsement.
And then they've talked to folks, but what's the evidence that's come out of those conversations for the support?
I think those are fair questions that I'm pretty familiar with, and I'm sure others are too, with this area. And it is extremely fast growing, and houses are just popping up all over the place down there in that part of Chatham and on the line with Wake County. I actually like these numbers and don't think they'd have a hard time hitting them at all.
Get to 900?
Really?
Based that on even.
If y'all say so.
Explosive.
There was a high school that was going to open up, and they ran into issues with facility and zoning and everything like that.
I think it's a fair question to ask. How are they feeling confident beyond knowing that this is a really fast growing part of the state? And the school that I'm with is, I don't know, 10, 15 miles away, and we had no issues hitting these numbers, and this area is even now growing faster than the community that we're in.
He mentioned Cary. You're not thinking about Wake County. You're going to be putting the school in Chatham County. Okay.
Which is concerning to me. Why was this area selected when no members of the board live in this area? It's described as a rural area, but actually it's not. It's now becoming an extension of Wake County. Who is supporting the school in Chatham County?
Okay. Anything else on mission, purposes, and goals?
I think this is the time to bring this up. We kind of had this discussion yesterday with another school. I'm kind of curious about the name. There's another school not too far away that's Carolina Charter. I just could see how that might create confusion. It's in Anger. I guess that's Harnett, Wake County line, but it's actually not terribly far away from here. Just- I throw that out for, maybe for them to respond to.
Okay. Anything else on mission, purpose, and goals? All right, well, let's talk about the education plan then. It's core knowledge as a moral education component. I know some of the reviewers said that it wasn't as, that it was clear but not as detailed as they would have liked. What do y'all think?
One of my questions was around the teacher-student ratio, with Chatham County being 15-1, and theirs 25-1.
Okay.
I think maybe the details were that we've approved several charter schools with core knowledge, so we may want to just ask them about core knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those where we throw out core knowledge and it's a stamp of
Approval.
approval. Like Joe's,
Says the classical.
Ed,
Mhm.
yeah.
And this relates kind of to the budget, but also the education plan. Doing core knowledge, there really wasn't much
Yeah.
being dedicated towards.
Professional development.
And I think the same for computer science, and, you know, what does that look like for all students? And it's in the K-8 school, so what does that look like day to day? And how is that funded in professional development?
Was this a Team CFA school before?
No.
yes. Wasn't this one that said it was a Pender, that was?
So Pender app.
They've taken a lot of the things from
CFA
Pender,
Pender.
Which was
but
a
I don't think
CFA.
they've ever partnered with CFA.
Right.
But it's the same plan.
I think the
It's got some
education
similar-
plan's
Plan
pretty
is
pretty
very close.
similar.
Which, how do you describe the whole of their plan?
Well, I'm gonna imagine it's Greg Sanders.
Sanders.
Oh, it's
Who
Greg. I
is
forgot
a-
about Greg.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg.
Anything else on the education plan?
Well, there are pieces missing from the reviewer's notes around a typical day, other appendices missing. Not sure we have a full picture.
Okay. All right, how about governance and capacity?
The board seems to be a strong board. I'm impressed with the board members and their expertise.
I thought I would like to get into a little bit just about kind of what the K-12 kind of academic experience of the board is on, you know, kind of day-to-day how a K-12 school runs. They very strong as far as business-oriented and higher education.
Okay.
But you know about, you know, K-12.
I had similar questions. I think one board member instructed maybe technology coding with K-12 and college level, but that was one thing I picked up on that had any experience
I
in
think
the
that
K-12 world.
that was a private thing that he did too. It's a private.
The academy is a, you know, I don't think it's a school. I think it was a after-school program.
Jason?
Similarly, is there an international flavor focus here, since one of the board members
Global.
seems to be very
Now,
strong?
what exactly is the global education piece? What does that look like?
Okay. About operations. So they are gonna have buses and school lunch program. I think the building is always the tough thing, since we've seen a charter try to open there and not be able to do it. Just because of zoning and pushback. I think this is slightly different from where that from where that school was, but still in the same vicinity.
I just know this area is difficult to get through the zoning. And with the transportation, I think the plan said 2 buses, but we're talking about 525 kids the first year. 2 buses with. So what is the targeted population? Is it just open the school here and see who comes, is there a specific student that we're looking for? What do we expect our EC and EDS populations to be? Because that affects how you budget.
Anything else in operations? All right, budget, finance. I thought the break-even number, they've got a good cushion on their break-even number. The break-even number was 417, which gives them about 100 students to play with, so that's a good. The budget, I thought the budget looked pretty good. I think there's some things that probably could go up, some of the things that y'all had mentioned. I did note there was a high facility cost, but that's maybe to be for this area.
Yeah, the facility cost was high, but the budgeted utilities was low per square footage. And the student operations staff, I was wondering if they could just expand on what that is. There's 3 individuals for the first year. I didn't really understand what that all encompasses. Elaborating a bit.
Also, if they do begin year one with 525 students, if they have 25 in the classroom, that's 21 teachers, and they budget for 18. So I'm wondering what their plan is there.
Okay.
The facility is only $200,000 more than what NHA was charging for 700 students. It's 900.
It's
point
there's
of
just,
note.
there's just 200,000 more than
Only-
NHO.
Only.
That's what I'm
And they
saying.
had
So,
not-
it's
they-
more expensive than.
But they have 900 students.
Okay.
I'm sure it's a just one point out.
All right. Well, then let's move on into question time. Let's see. We had some questions on mission, purpose, and goals. Sherry, good place to start probably with you about the selection of the area. So you can ask that question.
Yes.
So whoever wants to answer the question, she
That be
has.
Mr. Norwood? Why Chatham County?
We explored the whole area of western Wake County and eastern Chatham County, and we just felt that there was more of a need in that area between Lake Jordan and the Chatham County line. There's not another K-8 charter school anywhere near that area in Chatham County at all. And we have heard some experience about other charter schools trying to open in western Wake County, and they encountered a lot of roadblocks and difficulties.
So you got spooked from Western Wake.
Well, it was more about we found that there was a need. We looked at where are the charter schools in Chatham County, in particular, the ones K-8, and where are the rooftops there? I said rural area, but by rural area, I was trying to say that this is not a highly industrialized area with central business district, industrial parks, that
Gotcha.
sort of thing. But it is very highly developed with rooftops. This area is in the Jordan Lake watershed zone, which means the percentage of the land that you can actually build on is much smaller than in an area outside of that. And I think that is contributing to more, the lack of large parking lots, large buildings, and more spread out, more residential style development, which is exactly what is going to feed students to our school.
What specifics have you learned about Chatham County that as you were trying to find your location? What have you learned about Chatham? Since why are there no members from Chatham on the board? And what have you done to actively seek somebody from the county to, because I think if you're gonna start a school in an area, you need to have that area's support.
That is absolutely right. The people that were familiar with this group, we happen to all be from outside of Chatham County. We don't see Chatham County as being that far away from where we are and the areas that we know. But that is an excellent point, and that's what we have addressed. We have had many meetings with folks in Chatham County. I'd like to run through a list of some people we've met and people who have promised their support. And we're not going to be successful just on what we do individually and as this group, but our support and our success and our marketing and our enrollment is going to come from people in Chatham County who are leaders in Chatham County. Through those people, through their support, through their networks and their efforts, we're depending on those folks to drive students and spread the word about us. We have, Pastor Jamie Weiss of the Chatham Community Church. We have Reverend Sarah Pennell. She's the Pittsburgh United Methodist Church. One of the ones that I'm most excited about is Jessica Marshburn. She is the director of the Chatham YMCA, and who is more in touch with the student body population in Chatham than the YMCA. We feel like that's a great opportunity for partnerships and programs, and for them to see our school and to drive students to us. We also have Craig Witter, the Pittsburgh Center for the Arts. All of these four folks are actually residents of Chatham County, and those are candidates for future membership in our board. The other two that we have are actually not residents of the county. We have Betty Mangum. She's the retired director of Indian Education, and for our educational robustness, we have Dr. Todd Roberts. He's the chancellor of the North Carolina School in Science and Math. Step down from that, other community members that we've met with who have pledged their support and helped us to succeed in our mission. We've met with Alyssa Bird. She's the president of the Chatham Economic Development, and we have a letter of support from that. Cindy Poindexter, she's the president of the Chatham Chamber of Commerce. She was also very receptive and pledged her report. We have we are targeting a lot of churches. We have Daniel Woodard. He's an interim pastor of Olive Chapel Baptist Church. A couple other ones, Tracy Burnett. She's the director of Chatham County Parks and Recreation. We have enough land where a lot of charter schools might not have a lot of athletic fields and those sorts of things, but we have a lot of land that can be developed, and we've explored some partnerships with Chatham County to allow use of our properties and fields after hours or on the weekends when it's safe and students are not going to be there. And we have a few other ones, but that is what we've been doing to reach out to the people who are in Chatham and to get excitement to tap into all of their individual networks.
All right. Let's, Bruce, you want to ask about the name?
Yeah, just curious did you take into consideration that the name is similar to school is not on that map, but not far from there, and just kind of.
Yeah, so
what's a Royal Academy? I guess
Right. After further consideration, that was a thoughtful name, but thinking more about it, Carolina might be a little overused and not quite as geographically specific and an identifier as local as what we want it to be. We have thought about that, and there has been some internal discussion about, is that a confusing name? Could that be confused with somebody else? We want all of the people who are hearing about us and through our networks to know exactly what school we're talking about. And we agreed upon further reflection that could be confusing, and we would be willing to revise the name to something more appropriate.
Just curious. Thank you.
All right. I guess talk a little bit. There were multiple people that had questions about being able to meet the numbers. Can you talk a little bit about what your marketing plan will be?
The marketing plan, would anyone else like to help discuss some of the marketing plan beyond what we've already talked about the network of advisory committee?
So the board plans to apply for the NC Access Grant and apply for up to $100,000. Of course, letters of intent are due on January 15th and the application's due on February 15th. A big component of what they'll ask for in that grant is marketing. And one of the things that's impressed me about this board is their intention and commitment to making sure that everybody's welcome and that they intentionally market to all aspects of the community. And so they'll rely heavily. They've talked about hiring a marketing consultant with those dollars that would utilize Facebook, social media, continue the community information meetings, and then direct mail.
Why they didn't do a survey?
Sure. Lindley?
Why did you not do a survey or something like that to show intent of those numbers?
Continue on marketing.
Part of it was just in the time and trying to settle on the location. Again, I think it's important to understand where this is, and John, I think your analogy to Union County is pretty real. I mean, when you look at Union County, there's the Charlotte side, and then there's the other side of Union County. That's what we're really dealing with here. If any of you are familiar with Mountain Island Charter, again, located just inside the Gaston County line, but just serves Mecklenburg County and Gaston County. This school will serve both Chatham County and Wake County, particularly with its proximity to Cary and Apex. Peak Charter Academy is 5 miles from a couple of 5 to 7 miles from 2 of the sites that we're looking at. And, you know, they have an enrollment probably upwards around 900 students with a wait list of at least that many. So the demand's there. And again, when you look at other charters in Chatham County, you've got the one on the Chapel Hill side, Woods Charter in the northern section of the county, and then the other one is over in Siler City on the complete opposite side of the county. So really, it was just a matter of timing. But over the last month, as John indicated, we've done a lot of community outreach and have been blessed with overwhelming interest. So.
Okay, well, let's move into the education plan unless somebody's got something else pressing on mission, purposes, and goals. Jeanette, I believe you had some questions about the student-teacher ratio and parts missing from the education plan.
Yeah, I was wondering if y'all could speak to the student-teacher ratio. The application, I believe, said 25-1 will be your student-teacher ratio, but the Chatham County Schools website lists that Chatham County Schools is 15-1. So I was just confused about
Leave that.
if that's gonna be sufficient.
I'll take responsibility for that one, you know, and as I put the budget together for this school, and as you mentioned, the facility cost, you know, their initial discussions are a phased building approach with building for 600 in the first phase and then 900 in the second phase. And really, my experience is class size is not, I mean, what's more prevalent is parent choice. Parents are concerned about class sizes, but it has not been. I've opened 7 schools with class sizes of 25 students in a class, and that hadn't been a barrier. And one of the drivers in charter space is we don't get any money for capital. And so you need the revenue from 25 students in the class to be able to attract investors that will give you $10 million to build a facility. And so, as Mr. Friend said, you know, he's at Pine Springs Preparatory Academy, 25 students in a class, one of 119 schools that got an A and exceeded growth in the state of North Carolina. And it's 10 to 15 miles away from this school.
Right, I think, let's get somebody from the board to explain to us what core knowledge is. Linda Lynn had that idea. Good one.
He wants to wing it on that education concept.
Oh, no, well,
Well, the,
Please don't wing it.
yeah,
Tell us what you
yeah,
have.
just somebody explain, what core knowledge is and how you're gonna implement it.
Yeah, so I don't mean to sidestep that question, but what we are depending on is our role is governance, and our role is to make sure that we hire the correct head of school and leader in the school. And it's that person's job to hire the staff and actually implement these programs.
I
You should
agree
know
with
what-
that, but if your application says that you think core knowledge is gonna be what's best for this area and for these students, I think somebody on the board's gonna have to be able to explain to us what core knowledge is and why you selected core knowledge instead of some other course of study that you could have used. Why you chose Saxon math instead of some other kind of math? Why
Eureka
you
math.
chose something else? I think somebody on the board's gonna have to know that, because if you're gonna have to hold that school leader accountable, you're gonna have to at least have some sort of knowledge as to what this stuff actually is. I mean, is there nobody on the board that can give a 30-second overview of what core knowledge is
And why that was
and
chosen.
why you chose that?
We will take that as an opportunity to become more educated on those specifics.
Okay. Well, I guess in that case, then, I think, Lynn and Heather had some questions about
Yeah,
funding for.
we have
professional
we have,
development.
excuse me, we have very much depended on our consultant to lead us in that
I
direction.
understand. We still, I think we'd need somebody from the board to be able to do it.
Before you move away from the education plan, could they address maybe their computer science focus?
Yeah,
They
that
mentioned
was kinda how I was
coding
playing
and
that
AI,
in.
okay, I
Yeah.
thought you were moving to budget.
Yep, so if you can talk about the computer science and then also professional development and how that plays into the budget.
So first of all, I mean, I start this because actually back to 2013, I used to be a software engineer, and I read a lot of articles, posts from code.org, and from CS4O, that's from White House. They all believe, for next generation, computer science is a must-have fundamental subject. So I believe with that, and I started, they refer to those curriculum and create my own curriculum. I hired the teachers from other schools. Most of them is STEM teachers. I train them, teach them, because I actually I used to teach at the WICTEC Community College, programming database and other computer science principle course. So based on existing curriculums, and but those curriculum never used in the classroom. So I had the teachers, I did after-school program camps, and at the same time, Computer Science Teacher Association, which is from ACN, they have actually standard for K-12. So I basically consolidate the standards from CSTA and those curriculums, and create my own curriculum, teach after-school program students computer science. So most of the students, they love it. We teach from use game design, fashion design, through those other subjects to teach them computer science, so connect all together. So, and the parents love it. They saw what their kids did, and they thought coding is very boring, algorithm is boring, but they saw how students are so excited at my learning center. So that's why, I would like to bring my experience and also such a very important opportunity to this school. So what I have, first of all, it's actually by a couple of states, start with Arkansas 5 years ago. It's computer science mandatory from kindergarten. And also, New York State already passed the bill California passed bill, New York 2025, they will start computer science as mandatory. So the same as California. So basically there's a lot of, material information there, and also most people already realize this is so important. And we have a very good, like a CSTA standards, computer science K-12 standards is about 16 years already to work on that. It's very mature. And my experience teaching this and develop a curriculum is about almost 5 years. So all together, I think we can hear more teachers. I can provide training and I can oversight the curriculum development for the school. So I think that's for the computer science part of teaching.
I think where the confusion is in the application, spoke about the emphasis, the STEM focus, the computer science, which we understand the reasoning behind it. But then in the education plan, there are no details. There's no weekly or daily calendar. And we're just trying to understand how that's integrated into the daily schedule and what it looks like for a kindergartner versus a sixth grader. And then how do those components affect the budget?
First of all, I'm planning same as like a technology class or science class in other schools, public school or private schools. We're gonna use computer science, and most of the teach computer science most of the time. Because computer science actually is not just computer science. Right now, it's all areas connect to it. So science class or technology class, and I don't think like teaching CTE, it's a good idea. I would like to replace with CS. More science, computer science, less technology, because most kids right now is very familiar with computers. So that's the general plan. And I also have such practice actually, as I mentioned before, I'm not just teaching kids at my campus. We also provide such program too, like schools close by my learning center, like Carpenter Elementary School, Morrisville Elementary School. Even we, like 2 years ago, also did for Reedy Creek Middle School. So being involved, especially some private schools also. So teach actually is daily, not like every day, but 2 to 3 sessions a week. So, as this is moving on, I would like make it more and more mature, teach students every day, make it combine with, use the science class time and technology class time to teach the computer science.
Do you see them, say, a kindergarten, first grade class having this every day?
Which class?
A kindergarten, first grade?
Yes.
Having this every
The
day?
youngest kids
Science,
I-
technology class every day?
The youngest kids I taught coding is 5 years old. And we use like a drag and drop coding language, Scratch, or most recently I replaced with Blockly from Google. It's very easy to use, even like the kids, kindergarten kids can use on iPad or other tablets. And the most important thing is like at the very beginning, teach them very important computer science topics. So say, for example, if you are just do coding, if you don't know what is algorithm, what is data structure, well, it's
I see that there's $18,000 for total classroom technology. Can you explain to me what is that gonna cover then?
18 for the classroom. So, for most of school right now, they all have a computer lab and use iPads. First of all, we will have a computer lab too. For that.
So you just have like one lab?
Yes, and also
And the students
we can use a BYOD policy. Students can bring their own device to learn it. But not, computer science, it's a plug and unplug. Not all the time you have to use computers. Say like a kindergarten, what I teach kids like algorithm is not writing code, just use a daily example, say how you plant a seed, right? Algorithm is a recipe to something. But in computer science at the very beginning, you have to understand algorithm. So like binary number, decimal number to convert to each other, we don't use computer to teach, we just some group activities. So, I mean, not, they have to use computer all the time. As I would say like, especially for kindergarten, I would say like 30% of time need to get on a computer. Other time we need to teach them some principles, concepts also.
Thank you. We need to move on into operations and finance. We've got about 10 more minutes to ask questions, I guess. What are Sherry? You want to ask about the targeted population, because in this played in with the buses as well.
Right. Who would like to speak to the targeted population and what that means for your anticipated EC population, your EDS population, and how that affects your transportation and lunch plan?
I can get started with some of that. We have, as we mentioned, we've started the process for the NC Access Grant. That's going to provide a lot of initial money that we need to address those very issues. We are going to pay for that from marketing expenses we are targeting 35 to 40% of our students for the economically disadvantaged student body. And we understand that does require additional money to go toward both transportation and meal expense. And so that is how we're going to kickstart that. We feel this program is going to be very interesting for economically disadvantaged families, because while they may not have the resources personally at home to have this type of education with computer science and so forth, they can come to our schools and get that learning and get access to those programs. And also, we in the budget, we can't depend on just the revenue that we're going to be receiving from state and local, the typical places where charter schools get their money from. In order, we feel like we're going to be very attractive to a lot of companies in the Research Triangle Park and other companies in the area to give donations of computer equipment, all the infrastructure that we might need. We feel like we are able to get a lot of that donated. We've Greg has been great at fundraising with his enterprise there at the hospital. And so we feel like we have an advantage there, and that's how we're going to help pay for a lot of that.
Cheryl?
Okay, so the NC Access Grant's not guaranteed. So if you were not to get it, how are you going to address meeting the targeted population?
So we're going to have to redouble our efforts on that. We have a reserved spot for a very professional and experienced and successful grant writer. And that grant writer has screened us, has screened our program, and has more schools wanting to solicit his services than he can handle. And so he's had to prioritize those and only chose those schools that he feels has the highest and most reasonable chance of success. And we are one of those with our reserved spot. But should it not happen, then we're going to have to, pinch and squeeze in various different areas where we can, but in addition, redouble our efforts to outreach to, good corporate citizens, not just in Chatham County, but in some of the surrounding counties as well. Fundraising would be, whether we get that a grant or not, fundraising is going to be critical to our success.
Anything else? Any other questions? I know that, Lynn, I think you had one question about student operations.
Yeah, there was.
plus 3 student operations staff that was budgeted. Can you just elaborate a little bit what those positions are? What part of your teaching staff?
Now, we did depend once again on Greg, our consultant, to really give the details about the student operation and the staffing model that he's seen that has been successful in the 7 other successful charter schools. Greg, if it would be all right, if he could explain those staff positions.
Ms. Kroger, please repeat your question there. Is it about the organizational structure or the number of staffing positions?
Yeah,
Or
when you look at the staffing positions, you have your core teachers and special teachers, and then that just says student operations staff, and there's 3 of them, and I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, so a
Prior.
lot of that would come in the area of, the business manager and, the Power School data manager.
But you have those are budgeted also,
Okay.
separate sections.
And I think that if it's, what's the line item? I need to see the line item in the budget. I don't have it in front of me. Is it under student operations?
It's
Personnel budget.
under instructional personnel.
Oh, well, that would, okay. That would be more an instructional coaching position to support the implementation of core knowledge and Singapore math. So not only would we have the upfront professional development, but we would have people in the school that would be coaches for the teachers, instructional support people for the teachers and during their PLCs and that sort of thing. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
May I make one comment?
Sure.
Let me apologize for the lack of any specific knowledge, where we're not steeped in K-8 education. We are business people. We've never failed at anything we've done. And our approach to leading is gonna be find the very best people we can and leverage them into serving. And visit, we're gonna, like I've done with my center. I've taken a nothing center and made it one of the best in the country. Now, you wouldn't want me talking about your diabetes or helping you with your high blood pressure. I've got doctors that do that. We're gonna be the same way. We're gonna find the best people, the very best consultants. We're gonna find the best advice on curriculum development advice. We're gonna leverage them into serving us, and we're gonna raise the money, and we're gonna make this successful. We will not fail you. We will not fail if you give us the opportunity. That's just the way we're gonna approach it. We are business people. Again, we're not steeped in these terms of educational terms that you're specifically grinding on us about. I mean, we feel like maybe we should have done a little more prep for answering those specific kind of questions. I don't know that we anticipated that kind of detailed questioning, but I guarantee you we will not fail in this venture to provide for this community, this charter school.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move into discussion and motions.
I'm gonna have to take a page out of our chairman's book and talk about the block grants that we essentially are supporting and giving of taxpayers' money. And, it is important to us, I've seen in my short term here, about the knowledge of the board and the buy-in of the board. When it comes to the details of the application and what they know about you, how would you know that you have a good leader in core, who can lead core knowledge and implement these things if you can't be there day to day because you're running businesses? So I have to give a little pause right now just because of the lack of knowledge of the application, and I struggle with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't expect the board members to be experts on core knowledge.
No.
I expect them to be able to give me a 30-second, this is what core knowledge is. And I think that's, to me, that's just, the most important thing. The financial, very important for a charter school. Operations, very important. Getting the students there, very important. But the absolute 100% most important thing is the education plan, because that's why we're doing this. And so I think, I really feel like that the board needed to, even if they didn't know the minute details of everything about core knowledge, I think somebody should have been able to at least get up and say, this is what core knowledge is. This is how we're implementing
And
it.
why we chose it.
Why
I was
we
gonna
chose
say,
it.
we
Why-
looked,
why
we
we chose
looked
that over
at
something else.
X, and this is the one we chose.
The best one for this place.
And it supports our STEAM focus.
How it supports STEAM, because sometimes core knowledge,
Doesn't,
I mean, you have to
you
make
have to
it
mesh
work.
it. Mm.
Yeah, because it doesn't match up with the standard course of
No.
study, so you have to put that together.
Right, the alignment.
Lots of people are doing it, but you have to,
You have to work
know
at
that.
it.
You have to know that.
I think the nuts and bolts of the board is, I think they're strong and they have a lot of potential. But I just struggle with what we just discussed. And want there to be buy-in, because this is a gritty thing. Getting the application through, I think, having been a founder myself, is the easy part. It's all the other stuff that comes after that.
I struggle with that and going into a community with really few relationships. They're building relationships as they go. They haven't surveyed the community that they're going into. I feel like there's not a whole lot of tie with the community where they go, and it was chosen because of growth. And I don't see the relationship between the community and the curriculum and application in the school.
They've interviewed quite a few people and built relationships with people in Chatham. That might be somebody, I mean, those are key folks to be on a board.
Yeah, I think they can build that by expanding the board or being thoughtful if and when they expand the board. I think it's a really strong board in terms of their background, and
Education.
I will say I was appreciated the comments at the end there
Right.
that the gentleman made. Certainly, as Mr. Walker said, I think not being able to speak about the core knowledge and the curriculum plan is raising a question. At the same time, it sounds like they've kind of hired their consultant who does know that, and they're probably relying on him to educate them on that. But nevertheless, it's the board. But I think the rest of I'm not as concerned as I might be with other schools about the fact that they didn't do a survey of the parent. I just know this area.
Did you know
and
that?
I don't
Right.
think it's going to be. I don't think they're going to have a problem getting enrollments.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I mean, and it's not just this board exclusively, but I think our board. Yeah, I look at patterns. I look at the board yesterday, same kind of similar situation. A group saying we don't really know how to do this, but we're successful individuals in our own respective sphere, so we're gonna contract this out to these people that know how to do it. And while, hold the consultant in high regard, know his experience, I do think there's something to be said for you need to get to know how to do it. Like, you have to understand the application that you're submitting. And, if I was going to apply to the state of North Carolina for a $10 million grant to open a hospital, I could say I've been successful in running nonprofit organizations. I've been highly successful in this, but I would expect that I would have to know the model of the hospital that I'm running and why and how I'm going to run it and know that cold inside and out, and be able to explain why I've selected this model as opposed to the 20 other management models, in addition to having a lot of expertise. So I think it's just and this is not exclusive to this board, where you have these great people that I think probably will have the capacity to really select a fine leader down the road. But I think they are a nonprofit organization charged to run the school, and that's a significant burden and a significant, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars. So I think it's a high bar, and on some level, I want to say to you all, and as I said to the board yesterday, I think you all are really strong. I don't underestimate yourself. Learn it. know it, you know, and that'll help you select that great leader even better because you're selecting somebody that really knows some content. It doesn't mean you have to become a principal. It doesn't mean you have to become a curricular expert, but, you know, 4 hours reading ed reports will pretty much teach you everything you need to know about curriculum. Like that's, and all of you are very smart. So this is not rocket science. You know, this is not mechanical engineering. Same with the board yesterday. They came up and gave us all these reasons why they were all highly successful in their spheres, and then said, but we can't do this. We need to pay these other people $500,000 a year. I was just like, y'all can do this if you just learn it a little bit more and really, you know, and that's part of what's involved with the work. So, I'm excited. Good people like this are wanting to open schools. I think there's a little more that needs to be done.
Anything else? All right, floor's open for motions.
I'll make a motion that we do not move the Carolina Royal Academy forward.
The motion is to not move them forward. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed?
Joel? Oh, no, Joel's not here.
So the motion passes and it'll be recommended to not be ready to open. Thank y'all. Hope to see you back next year.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like to continue with the next group?
Let's see, what time are we at? Yeah, let's take a break. Why don't we say 10:50?
Works.
Nice and nice.
So when fall asleep.
We have a couple kids who, one in particular, cannot stay awake if he sits down. So we got him standing there.
We're good. This one's
I
on.
wanted to do that. and
Chair.
it was very conflicting.
Tesla, the Tesla school.
It was explained.
If you could afford, would you ever see your kid in the room?
Yes.
If they needed it.
I read that.
I'd use a board first.
Yeah. The Board of Education needs to see the knowledge. No, but I mean, I feel like it's kind of a. I feel like people used to go to boarding school. I mean, rich people, but
It's kind of the thing.
it's cool to learn all that. Like my wife is like, I would never do that. Or maybe it's because I'm from the Northeast. I'm like, if I could afford that, to make it, I feel like Aiden would, my oldest son, would just constantly like this. I feel like at boarding school he would thrive.
Yeah.
And like they can control the screens and stuff even better. We're ready. Let's go ahead and get it going.
Board members, the next applicant group appearing before you is representing Telra Institute. They are proposing to locate in Mecklenburg County with proposed enrollment as follows. 238 students in grades K through 4 in year 1, 298 students in grades K through 5 in year 2, 318 students in grades K through 5 in year 3 and beyond. The LEA has submitted an impact statement, but no due diligence has been requested. This applicant group has not made any special requests, and it is not a repeat applicant. This applicant group has not been provided assistance with this application and is not planning to partner with an EMO or a CMO. The application has been deemed complete.
What are we gonna do with them?
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams and members of the advisory board. Appreciate having the chance to come before you today and for you to meet our board and for us to have a chance to demonstrate our commitment to the success of this charter school. I'll give everyone a chance to reintroduce themselves. You heard these voices on the phone a few weeks back, but we'll put faces to these names. My name, once again, is Ronak Bhatt. I'm a father of 4 in South Charlotte, 3 of whom are in elementary schools with CMS. My background's in physics. I've been an educator since working on my doctorate at MIT. I've been an adjunct faculty member at UNC Charlotte in both kind of economics and business and energy. But for my day job, I've really been working in strategy and consulting for most of my career. Currently, I work for a company called Avantor. They manufacture life science tools, chemicals to service science and healthcare and high-tech industries, and I drive strategy for them. I am passionate about this school. I mean, I'm personally impacted by what this school can offer to the communities around us in Charlotte. I think at least one of my children, I think, would love to take advantage of this school. So we know what this community needs because we live and work here in Charlotte, or down there in Charlotte, I should say. What I bring to this board, I have experience as a chair and a founder of another nonprofit. I have experience managing teams, working on strategy and developing new businesses in entrepreneurship and in corporate context. So I hope to use that to make sure that this charter as a startup gets off on the right foot and to make it successful. And with that, let me try and quickly turn it over to my colleagues.
Good morning. My name is Judith Malvo Ellerby. I spent about 7 years working as a marketing and communications consultant supporting the schools and educators of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. After that time, I also worked with the North Carolina Public Charter Schools Association. I am an adjunct instructor at York Technical College, and I've worked at Central Piedmont Community College working with students who've graduated from Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. I'm currently full-time at Wells Fargo, but my background and my passion is in marketing and building community relationships and partnerships.
Morning, everybody. My name is Duhin Dutt. 5 years back, I quit a career leading data science organizations in financial services to start a private education enrichment company called Thinking Feet in Charlotte. Starting with 15 students, we grew to close to 400 last year. And through those 5 years, I've had the opportunity to grow everything from marketing, operations, curriculum development. We attract a lot of kids who are motivated in education, in coding, math, language arts, public speaking, science, and engineering. So my journey for the last 5 years taught me a lot of things. That was my first foray into education. I've always been passionate about it. I have 2 kids, one 9th grader, one 5th grader. So that learning journey is what I hope to bring to TELRA in its growth journey as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Matthews. I'm a professor at UNC Charlotte in the area of gifted education, where I direct the graduate programs in gifted education. I'm also a parent of 3 students who have gone to magnet programs in CMS. My oldest son is a sophomore now at NC State, right down the road here, and my youngest is an 8th grader now at Piedmont IB Middle School. And my middle daughter is currently attending North Carolina School of Science and Math in Durham, where she's a senior. I have served on a few other boards of several different organizations in gifted education, and also on the board of Metrolina Scholars Academy several years ago in Charlotte. Also have been on the board of the National Association for Gifted Children, the North Carolina Association for the Gifted and Talented, and a couple of others that I won't mention since we're trying to be brief here. So that's really kind of what I bring to the board is my experience in gifted education, and also my parent hat as a parent of 3 students who have been through gifted education programming in CMS. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Harold Ryder. Tomorrow, I will put the finishing touches on 56 years of university work. During the last 20 years, I have developed a passion for working with teachers and especially gifted middle school students. I've been involved in 5 projects that I'm proud of, perhaps a few more, but 5 that I'd like to mention. In 1980, I founded the UNCC Super Competition, which is a mathematics and science competition. In 1987, I founded the Charlotte Mathematics Club. In 1991, I founded the Mecklenburg Math Club. In 2008, I founded the Charlotte Teachers Circle. And in 2009, I founded the Julia Robinson Mathematics Festival for middle school girls. And all 5 of those organizations are still thriving today. I think I'll quit now.
That's what you're saying to Maura too, right? Congratulations on your retirement.
Congratulations. Gregory Denley, pleased to meet you. I have lived in Charlotte for 17 years. My 3 children attended CMS. My wife served as president of the PTA, and I have been inspired to give back and serve. 15 years ago, I answered an open call with the University of Phoenix, and I've been teaching in higher education, adults in higher education. Not gifted and talented adults, but adults that deserve a chance to get an education. And I saw firsthand how underprepared students were coming into my math class. I think we can fix that with curriculum that is rigorous and comprehensive at the K through 12 level. I have since completed a doctorate in educational leadership, which is the same licensure required to be a CMS superintendent. What I bring to the board is 30 years experience in business working in fintech. I specialize in data and analytics. but I also currently teach in an International Baccalaureate Master's program, so I teach teachers. I am passionate about sharing the gift of education with all children.
And we're happy to answer any questions that the advisory board has of us. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Great, real quick, let's just give me, shout out some stuff that you wanna dig into on this application, team.
I thought on the mission, purposes, and goals, I'd like to hear a little bit about what they mean by gifted, because they're using kind of a different definition, and then sometimes I kind of got the feeling that it was one of those things where it says, well, all students are gifted. Is it really all students are gifted, or is there some kind of definition that you have? And then that goes into the marketing plan as well. If you're gearing this towards gifted students, then how are you going to market in such a way that that's the type of students that you're getting? There's not a weighted lottery in here for gifted students, which I think you probably legally could do. And I think there's one school that maybe does have an IQ requirement that's currently operating. And so I guess that was kind of, what do you mean by gifted, and what, how do you plan to market to those students?
I think my question's around the education plan and just getting clear on exactly how do you plan to make this about gifted ed, and what does that look like? Because to me it was kind of very nebulous, and I'd like to know what the strategies are, or the theories, those types of things, to kind of wrap my brain around what a day-to-day looks like for this school.
I think they were also tasked with providing EC information and how they would address the needs of students who come in who are not gifted, since there are no admission requirements. And so I know they've submitted a response to that. I'd like to hear them just elaborate on their plans there.
And also their transportation plan, not enough.
Also, I think that if you're targeting gifted kids, then a goal of 68% is really low. In the area, in that southwest, I guess the southeast area they're talking about, the other schools are already way outperforming that.
I have a question about just the budget as it relates to employee salaries. Some comment around the administrative salaries and whether that's going to attract
Kind of piece.
the kind of person they're going to want at that salary range that they put in there.
Okay. All right, why don't we jump in, and then obviously we'll have more questions. All right, let's start out with, why don't we just jump into the gifted definition of gifted students and how you're gonna kind of evaluate gifted students for the program, and I'm sure we'll have questions from there.
Let me start to answer, and then I think I'm going to invite Michael to come up with the more nuanced explanation. There are different definitions of what gifted means. I think the persistent challenge that any school like ours has is whatever definition you apply, the identification and the reliable identification of kids that have those talents, whether they're natural or nurtured, is really hard, especially at a young age. And so that's why we thought it would be a more inclusive environment to not have a strict admissions cutoff, but to basically allow people to self-select into the school. Our marketing is going to be focused on, first of all, being very upfront about the kind of curriculum that we're going to offer, and we can talk more about that here, but of course that will be detailed further throughout our planning year. And then explaining how the school works, the mechanics of the school, and so that students that are excited about the opportunity to learn a different kind of math curriculum or to get some enrichment they may not find in their home school will be the ones that are applying. At the same time, of course, we are going to be prepared to accept any and all students who come to our school, and I'm happy to talk more about, I think it's a separate question, about how we deal with these students.
Yeah, talk to us about that, because that is material to kind of everything.
Sure. I think I'm wondering if I should let Michael talk about Finish Gifted first.
All right, that's
That's
fine.
all right. Just
Yeah.
before I don't want to confuse the issue.
Yeah, that's fine.
Michael, can I ask you to kind of finish that topic and then I'll come back to this.
Yeah, sure. I guess there's a few different things that I would say. One is that the kind of, okay, first off, out of the school districts in and around CMS, I think only 2 of the 7 identify students prior to 2nd grade. CMS doesn't identify students as gifted formally until the end of 2nd grade, and so really, for at least K1 and 2, there's not really a formal identification process in most of the places in and around Charlotte that have gifted education programming. And part of that's due to some of the reasons that Ronak just mentioned. A second point is that the trend sort of in the field, and this kind of got kicked off with a book that colleagues of mine and I wrote that was published in 2014. The trend is starting to be to try to label programming and services rather than labeling students. And part of that is also coming out of some work in the last 5 years or so by some of my other colleagues who have found that even really under the very best measurement conditions, the testing and measurement processes that we have really have a far higher error rate for gifted identification than people think they do. People sort of think, okay, if you give these great tests, then, they really mean something, but there's a lot of variation in scores even from one student taking the test one day versus a different day. And there's measurement error in those tests, and then there's also errors at other points in the process, particularly at the parent and teacher nomination stage, we're coming to learn. And so for all of those reasons, the formal identification really probably should be best viewed as more of a way to target resources to students who need them, rather than as something that has sort of an extensive meaning on its own. So I think those are kind of the two sort of main points that I would say. So when we're talking about then the curriculum and labeling curriculum and services rather than labeling students, then I think the approach that Telra is following really fits into that point of view. And it's, it takes a long time for ideas to change in education, and it's going to be a number of years, but a few districts around the country are starting to do some of this work already, and they're finding that it's becoming possibly very effective.
So then what does that programming look like? If you're not identifying students, you're going to identify program. I get that part. What's that look like?
Sure. So the 2 main approaches typically are acceleration or enrichment, and this looks like a little bit of both of those really. So enrichment tends to be more the existing curriculum, but in greater depth and complexity, whereas acceleration, particularly in things like mathematics that are very sequential, is moving more quickly through that curriculum. And so we think we've identified some different curricula to use that will allow both of those things to happen with the students at Telra.
I guess just the comment as I listen to you speak, you're going to be open to all. What you just described to me sounds more like elements of personalizing learning for each student.
Sure. Yeah, that's a large part of it.
It's very different than most parents when they hear something very different than what you just described is my experience.
Sure. I think the stronger focus on acceleration is what makes it different from, I think, calling it just individualized learning, because there is also a strong focus on moving more quickly through curriculum and on mastering higher grade level work.
So I guess it's just, this is just a commentary. I think it makes me think of 2 things. One is that if it's really touted as and I'm not saying you're doing this, but a school for the gifted, there are those parents who then would see that, read that, not fully understand what you just described, because they haven't had an opportunity to talk to you, and think, oh, that's not for my child. And then on the flip side, you'll have those parents who think this absolutely is for my child, and it's a way for them not to interact with those kids who aren't gifted. Just calling what
Yeah,
it
I mean,
is,
those
right?
are kind of the tensions in the field, and
Yeah.
they've been there as long. I've been in the field for close to 20 years now, and they've been around a lot longer than I have. So, yeah.
Forgive me if you answered this. Is there going to be a screening test of some kind?
No, we don't have a screening test.
So, the mission,
Why not?
Because of what he just said, I
So
think.
that's what I was referring to earlier, right?
What?
There are schools out there already in the Charlotte area that have screening tests. We wanted to explore this idea of having a more inclusive environment for students that want to take advantage of a gifted program, right? So the criticism against these screening requirements has persistently been, as Michael can describe, from educationally disadvantaged students who may not have the support systems at home or in the schools that enable them to perform as required for these screening tests. And we may be missing a lot of students who could take advantage of accelerated programs or enriched programs by enforcing very strict admission screening tests. So, our philosophy is a little different. We want to give those students a chance. If they are truly motivated and want to give it a try, we want them to give it a try. But also, we think that even among the so-called, gifted population, there's a big spectrum of abilities, right? You may have a student who's gifted in math but struggle in reading. And we want to have a curriculum that can flex, right? So they'd be able to participate in potentially an accelerated math group as early as kindergarten or first grade, even if they need to be in a reading group that gives them a chance to catch up. At the same time, you can also have, these gifted children, often called, you may have heard the term twice exceptional, right? So they could have learning disabilities, speech or behavioral disorders, autism, or other attention disorders. These can mask their giftedness, so that may inhibit them from passing some of the screening criteria. Or other times, their giftedness may actually mask the disability. And so they're not going to the full extent of where they could be because you're not able to treat the underlying disability or accommodate some of the underlying disability. So we want to be particularly cognizant to some of those needs and that diversity of students that we're likely to see. And that's why we are, building in a full-time EC teacher onto our staff. And I think ahead of our last clarification interview, I provided some supplemental information that showed our budget that when those, it's hard for us to anticipate the penetration of exceptional children we'll see. We've kind of built out a few different scenarios at 1% penetration as one scenario and then at 10% as another range and tried to understand what that would do to our budget. So as a supplement, we provided what that would look like at a 10% scenario. So in addition to having that full-time EC teacher, we'd be able to bring in quite a few part-time specialists and consultants with the specific skill sets needed that would support those students depending on the diversity of issues that they may have.
Your description of who you expect your student body to be suggests that you pretty much are going to have to offer a full range of services because you're going to have even in the same kid, you could have a child who's accelerated in this and not in that.
Correct.
So how are you planning to meet all those needs? Like what's the plan for that?
Well, this is not a challenge that every public school has to deal with this challenge, right? So it's not new. So fundamentally, the gifted part of our curriculum or the gifted part of our school mission is served by the choice of curriculum, as well as the structure of the unit. So what we're using something called flexible grouping, and what that means is on a curriculum unit by curriculum unit basis, based on the kind of aptitude that the student has demonstrated up until that point, and it can be at the middle of the year. So we're able to flexibly group students into mastering, fractions or geometry, whatever topic is being taught. We put students at the appropriate level for that particular unit, and then that's dynamic in the sense that after that unit's over, we can restructure and give students a chance to participate. If it's an arithmetic unit and they may be struggling there, they may be in a totally different group. And so the individual cohorts, and we have at least our proposals for 3 classrooms per grade, there'll be a lot of movement back and forth between those classrooms as the year progresses. And so some students we may find are starting to participate in some second grade groups when they're in first grade because they are ready to move forward. Some groups may be working at grade level. And then so that within that flexible grouping, that's our second layer of support to provide the differentiation. The third layer, of course, is the teachers themselves. And we want to have as many of our teachers as possible have some training and some certification in kind of gifted methodologies, That is not only preparing them to kind of teach an enriched curriculum, but a big portion of that gifted certification training is how do you differentiate within your classroom, which is equally applicable to students who may be performing above grade level as below grade level. And then we want to, through professional development, arm all those teachers with all the right interventions so they can supplement any students that need it, right? And Michael, is there anything you want to add to that?
Thank you. That was a good explanation, and I didn't get that from the app, so that was helpful. Thank you.
There's a page limit, and so I figured you'd read enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer any other
Well,
questions.
yeah, just sticking with the questions on the model. 14 teachers, 2 exceptional children's teachers, one. But
One
we're-
full-time, but we may add at least one, because even if we had no exceptional students, we need one to be there to do the testing and the training and the help the identification. And then we may add more depending on how many students we get.
but no actual gifted teachers, no gifted pull-out.
No, because almost all of our teachers are expected to be quote
You're gonna
gifted teachers.
co-certify. I don't think your salaries are high enough to get those teachers.
Gifted licensure carries no additional pay, unfortunately, in North Carolina.
It
It's
doesn't
a-
matter. People that are paid that are the type of teacher that you're gonna get, that you're gonna want for $40,000 in Charlotte Mech. I don't see it.
We have some pretty strong connections with the different universities, including my own program, where we have probably currently close to 50 teachers enrolled in the gifted certification. And a lot of them would like to stay in the Charlotte area upon their graduation, and so we do.
40,000 in CMS is level 0.
Yeah, it's new teacher. Mhm. We
So
also
are you
have,
going with all brand new teachers?
We also have early entry program. We also have early entry coursework in gifted education that we just started this past
This is at
summer.
UNC
actually,
Charlotte?
At UNC Charlotte for new teachers who are undergraduates in teacher preparation and can begin getting the experience in gifted education. And so we'll also have those teachers as a potential pipeline into the school
So
over
you're
time.
planning to start with all new teachers, brand new teachers?
Not necessarily brand new, right? So the data we have, and by the way, as a board, we're very aware of and sensitive to the market, and if the market tells us that number is not cutting it, we'll change. We'll have to find a way to make it work. The research we did showed that 40,000 is the CMS starting salary, going up to about 45,000 for a teacher with about 4 to 5 years of experience, right? So we are, in like many charters, I think many of you obviously have to deal with the same issue. We are going to be competing for more junior tenured teachers. That's just the fact of the matter. Now, that being said, some will be more senior, some will be fresh, right? And so when we say 40,000, that's an average. It's not a cap, right? There'll be some that are out there probably in the high 40s to start and maybe beyond, depending on what sort of talent we see out there. So I think we'll be pretty close, within $2,000 or $3,000 to a CMS teacher, in terms of our average salary, to a CMS teacher with kind of 4 or 5 years of experience, right? I think that's and where we can't compete on salary right off the bat, we'll offer, the flexibility, the autonomy, and the many reasons that many teachers choose to work in a charter school as opposed to working in a district school. So we think we can offer a unique environment for a lot of these teachers who are passionate about gifted education to work in that field full time. And again, stay in North Carolina, where they may have had to travel farther out if they wanted to stay in that field. So we think we're in the right ballpark, but if the market tells us we're wrong, we're more than willing to adjust to make sure we get the teachers we need.
Are you planning to offer retirement or any kind of incentive supplemental?
They're like a private insurer.
Yeah, currently we are not planning to participate in the state pension plan.
Very smart.
Good idea. Good idea.
And I think hopefully that's a big selling point. Maybe they'll get teachers to come to us. But we do plan to offer contributions to a defined contribution plan.
It might be a selling point for the beginning teachers. It won't be a selling point for teachers that are already in it.
Absolutely. I mean,
but
look,
it's so expensive. I mean, it just drains your whole budget. And if you ever try to get out,
right,
it's like 12 years of operating expenses.
I mean, our value proposition as a new charter school to attract a 20-plus year tenured district teacher who would have to forego a pension. I mean, there's almost no chance, right? So we are definitely focused on younger tenured teachers to make
So
that work.
I want to ask you a series of questions as if I'm a parent, and I think this is probably something we should do with more applicants to get them to understand your kind of like elevator pitch. So you can kind of pretend I'm asking as if I was a parent. So Telra Institute, could you tell me, is a gifted school? It's a gifted school. My child isn't gifted. Can I still apply?
Absolutely, you can still apply.
And what if my child has an IEP? Do you provide IEP services?
Yes, we do. We provide an FAPE, right? For any student who has special needs, we're going to find a way to accommodate you.
What if my child is behind all the other students? Is that how will they take advantage? Isn't the work going to be way above their?
Well, in that case, I would ask you a little bit more to understand where they're behind, why they're behind. Are they entering at kindergarten where they have a chance to catch up, or are they entering at fifth grade, right?
My child, they actually failed third grade, but they don't have an IEP. Let's say that.
They failed third grade, don't have an IEP. Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have to be honest, right? I'm going to say our expectations for third graders, here's what our curriculum looks like. We're using Beast Academy math for third grade, and here's why we think that's great. It's great for students who, to instill a passion in math, to prepare you to do things even like participate in state and national math competitions. Now, if you...
My child got a what on the math EOG?
So you're really putting me on the spot here because we have not had a chance to prepare our marketing page.
No, that's okay. But
yeah.
you wrote the application, so I'm curious of like how, because this is where the rubber meets the road. So I'm curious of like how are we going to respond to this?
I mean, if that student got in, how? I mean,
Yeah.
I think what he's getting at is my student gets in your school. How are you going to get my student up to where they should be?
So, look, that student, to be honest, that student is going to probably be in the remedial cohort, right, within our school. I'm going to be able to describe some of the interventions that we can offer that will help those students, which might include, manipulatives, small groups, intervention blocks, scaffolding, right? So we'll have a certain amount of these interventions that have shown to work, or at least are believed to work. It's really hard to demonstrate things in education for students that are potentially struggling behind math. And we're going to say that, look, we are offering differentiated courses. So, your student will get more one-on-one time with the teachers. And we're going to do our best to achieve as much growth as possible for that student. They may not be performing above grade level at the end of the year, but our goal is that they show more growth in our school than they would anywhere else. And that would be our commitment to your student, to any student that comes.
Okay, good. So now I'm going to flip it.
Okay.
My child is in third grade, but they're doing math on a sixth grade level. And do you have a test for your school to enter as a gifted school?
We don't have a test, but I can show you the curriculum that we're doing in third grade. And we have a group of third grade students that are doing, this unit in Beast Academy, which our schedule is by the end of that year in Beast Academy, they'll be performing at, an NC grade 5 or 6, right? That's sort of our baseline.
Well, she's already there, so, and she's been homeschooled, and we're doing all sixth grade curriculum. Is she going to be above the other students? How do I know for sure that the other students in the class are going to be, challenging and competitive, for her to really be challenged? Because that's my biggest concern. That's why we took her out of public school. She's not challenged.
Come on up, Harold. We're going to bring in our math genius.
I think one of the things we would do with your daughter is to show her the Beast Academy books. They're full of puzzles. Beast Academy was very fortunate to hire a man named Palmer Mebane, who was the world puzzle champion in 2016, I think. He is an incredibly ingenious puzzle builder. not just puzzle solver.
But how can I be sure that she's going to be around other kids that are as smart as she is? Because that's what I'm really looking for.
I don't think that's crucial. I think what's important is that she be excited herself about doing whatever she can. Being around, it is very useful to be in a group of youngsters who are all thriving, learning from one another as well as the teacher. But I think the curriculum is pretty convincing here.
Good.
If I could add.
Yep.
That, not, maybe I should stop where we're ahead, but hopefully we're also planning to structure the day so that there are no impediments to your daughter joining the 5th graders for math, if that's what she needs to do, right? So our 5th graders, will have some 5th graders that are doing 8th grade math. So somewhere between 3rd grade and 5th grade, she'll find a group that's working at the pace that she's at, and she can slot into that. And we're going to try to be very deliberate so that students have that flexibility. It's not a binary decision of do you accelerate and jump from 3rd to 5th or not, because that's a really hard question for a lot of students.
Good.
But they might jump ahead for part of the day and not for another.
Have you guys talked to any traditional schools that are gifted and talented magnets in terms of how do they select students for their program?
So we know how CMS selects students for their
How
gifted
do
talent
they
program.
select?
So
Do they have a G&T school?
So CMS has what they call the TD, Talent Development Program. So they have, that program is within each home school, and it's also, I think, in 6 elementary schools that are magnet schools. They all have the same screen, which is a COGAT test. That's the primary screen, and then if you don't make the cutoff on the COGAT, there's supplemental tests that you can make, and then there's a review of a student's portfolio. So there's multiple ways to get into those programs. But COGAT is the primary screening that they use to qualify for entry. That's for those schools. For Metro Atlanta Regional Scholars Academy, they have sort of a homegrown test, which is intended to roughly correspond to an IQ test, and I think 135 is their cutoff.
Yeah.
You know, I think this goes along with this, and to kind of weave it into the budget too. When, you know, let's say that the child that, you know, I'm asking to go and they have maybe they're in a wheelchair or have some kind of other issue where transportation is going to be an issue, and they've got an IEP that requires a certain mode of transportation. You've got $3,000 budgeted for transportation, and you could possibly have one kid with one IEP that's going to eat up that entire transportation budget.
In 1 month.
So, I mean, I feel pretty good about this school. My question is how much are y'all willing to be able to work to be able to find some money? Because it sounds like there's 2 places where you're really hurting on the money is probably the teacher salary to make sure you recruit and attract the best quality teachers to be able to do this. And then number 2 is really the transportation budget. You don't have to run buses. Nobody's saying you have to run buses, but the transportation can't be a barrier. And you have to demonstrate that to us, and that also every child would have a lunch. I don't think the lunch was as big of an issue as the transportation. So, I mean, what would you do in a situation like that? You're going to accept this student. The student's coming in, has got an IEP that needs specialized transportation that is going to wipe that budget out. How are you going to adjust the budget and find that money?
So let me first answer maybe the broader questions. We're going to work really hard to make whatever budget adjustments are needed and raise supplemental funds if needed. But for those specific issues of transportation and nutrition, I understand that those can be significant barriers for students to participate in a program like ours. So we're going to do what we can to eliminate those barriers. On transportation, a number of schools in our area realize 100% on parent carpools or charter schools. While we want to do that, that's not sufficient. We acknowledge that that's not sufficient especially to reach students who are coming from farther away, perhaps from a lower density area, so carpools are just not practical. Other schools and areas have contracted, and it's what we propose, to contract with a third-party bus service. Eagle Bus is one of the big providers in the Charlotte area. What that would mean is they would set up a series of routes. Parents would pay a fee to participate in that bus, and what we could do as a school is for parents that are on a free and reduced price lunch service, we can subsidize those and work with the charter bus company to set a fee high enough that allows some cross subsidies of those parents that otherwise can't pay for transportation service on their own. So what that net effect would be is a zero budget impact on our school, right? We intend to operate transportation as a revenue neutral process, which would be funded by the parents that are participating, with the general transportation participants subsidizing those that are needy and free and reduced price lunch. We have a very similar program on nutrition. So when we submitted the application, we didn't want to commit to a national school lunch program because we weren't yet sure, even though we did express that was our aspiration to have one, because we weren't yet sure what our facility would be like and if we could support it. Since we submitted our application, I've talked to a number of vendors, including some that can provide NSLP compliant meals, either on a unitized basis or in a bulk satellite operation where they would cook in a central kitchen and deliver trays of food and that can be served. So that's possible even if we don't have a full service kitchen with ventilation and everything. These vendors are able to help us make sure that it's National School Lunch compliant, and it's not unusual at all for them to set a general meal price such that the whole meal system is also revenue neutral to the school. That's why you didn't see it in our budget, because both of those activities are intended to be revenue neutral. So again, the meal price of $3.70 or whatever it ends up being kicks in enough subsidies to support the free and reduced price lunches. And at the end of the day, the school it makes it a wash.
I have a question for Dave. If the school contracts for the transportation, can they then charge?
That is a gray area. The charter schools are not allowed to charge any fee that the local LEA.
It does not, and CMS does not.
So the way we proposed it in our budget was, I don't recall if I was explicit about this in the application or not, but we would say that the parents would be paying the fee to the charter bus company.
Directly to the company.
We, as a school, would charge the charter bus company a drop-off fee, right? So that kind of recoups the charge that we need, so that then we can directly subsidize the parents that need the subsidy. So if we have to do it that way, we can do it that way. If not, then, if there's a way to do it more directly with the school, we're happy to do that too. But we'll find a way to make sure that the parents that need the help get the help, whether it's half price or completely free transportation. We want to make sure that any student that wants to participate in our program can do so.
I've heard you say a couple times, there's now probably 3 or 4 things you said, we'll make it work if we have, if we have a need there. Salaries, transportation, food, those things are starting to add up just in the back of my mind. What does we'll make it work mean in terms of where is the plan to get extra resources out of this budget? Where are you taking?
Right. So as described, for transportation and food, we can make it work revenue neutral. We don't need to pull money from anywhere else in the budget.
I think that's harder than you imagine it to be.
You just don't know.
Well, it depends on the proportion of FRP within a population, right? So kind of our expectation is 10 to 20%, and that's enough to have the cross subsidy work. If it were 80%, as some of your schools may be, obviously that doesn't work. So we're trying to take advantage of the fact that there is a diverse set of students coming to our school. On the salary front, look, we've been conservative, and we're happy to talk about that, in our enrollment projections for the school for the first 3 years, and we cap out immediately after for 3 years. We could very easily, we have relatively small class sizes. Those are about 17 students in kindergarten, for example. We can grow those class sizes by 10% without really adding significant incremental staff. And that would, after year 3, if we were to do that, that would really help cover, potentially, boosts in salaries and things like that.
I agree with you. I think the challenge with that, because I think part of the way the model is represented is on a small class size. Like all the things that you describe being able to do are only feasible when you have 15 to 17 students. Like moving, when you're at, 20, 21, 22, and then you start trying to, okay, you're going to be in this class for math and everybody's going to move around. It just gets way complicated, whereas it's much more manageable with the small numbers. So I just worry a little bit about in partially because I think in the the schools, you see this more and more, though we see less applicants with small class sizes as a key part of their program. But that's just a really easy thing to just say, okay, this doesn't matter. And I have, mixed feelings on whether or not it's really important, right? But if at some point you got to say, like, Central Park School for Children, for example, for whatever it's worth, like, they are like, our hill to die on is 15 kids per class. And there's a lot that they have to forego in K-5 because they have just said we are going to die on 15 kids per class. And it's part of what's made the school successful is because they're just like, this is our thing. Whether or not you believe that's the right thing, but financially they're always scrapping to make it work. And open to middle school partially, I think, because you can have a few more students per class without. Anyways, I just think you got to get clear on whether or not, like, is that your hill to die on? Because otherwise, then, you got to say no to other stuff, right? You got to say, well, we're not going to have a bigger class size, and we're not going to pay more than $40,000 for a first-year teacher at our school, and that just means we're going to have to scrap we're going to have to convince people on working at a gifted school or whatever. I don't know.
So that I can at least clarify, that's not our hill to die on, right? We're not 100% committed to that. Our small class size is not a function of a principled stand so much as it is a desire to prove out our model before expanding the school. Mm-hmm. And I think far more important than the class size itself is the ratio of adults to children, right? So if we expand our class from 17 to 21, and that also comes with a teaching assistant in that class, then I think it does become more manageable, as you say. And aside from what we've submitted, we've run some scenarios where we looked at larger groups with more teaching assistants, and the numbers get a lot more attractive. But we want to prove out the model with some smaller class sizes first before we explore that.
Yeah.
On that
I have
budget question-
one more question. Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
This is just on the big question, and y'all, this is kind of referencing our prep sheets. Like, going back to the original, like, do we really need this school? Like, do we really need a gifted school? Are these students being served in another? Like, can you talk a little bit, just like convince us of the need for this school or for kids that are already, arguably going to do well in school, needing a more refined experience in terms of like a value proposition for public dollars. Take us back to that, because
Sure.
I think that's at the core of this.
Forgive me for being a little repetitive because it's in our application.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Yeah,
worth
that's
maybe
okay.
restating. So it's a persistent myth in education, right? That gifted learners will do just fine. So we recognize them as a special needs population. It's recognized by the state and by educational professionals nationwide, right? So the North Carolina AIG program standards reject the view that they'll be just fine, because when an appropriately differentiated education is not provided, gifted learners, I'm quoting from them, right? So that's what I'm reading. Gifted learners do not thrive in school. Their potential is diminished, and they may even suffer from cognitive and affective harm. So in some cases, this can be provided in the student's home school, right? And you get a little enrichment in your home school.
Can I ask a clarifying
Yes.
question? Is there a cap on the gifted programs in any of these elementary programs? Does anyone know this? Like, if there's like 100 kids that want to get in, and are they like, well, there's only 50 seats in this program? Or how does that work?
If they're identified, then they're served.
If they're identified, they're getting
Then they're
served.
served.
Statewide in North Carolina, the identification rate ranges between 12 and 13%, but at individual schools, it ranges from 0 up to probably 80-some%. However, the state only funds at 4% of average daily membership for those services.
Okay. Would you apply to be a gifted? Have a gifted?
Are you going to
the
have an
state
approved
gifted?
plan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Charter schools are not required to have an AIG plan, but I have worked with several teachers who teach at charter schools who have developed those plans for their school, and so, yeah, I would imagine that we would eventually.
Okay. Yeah, it's super complicated.
It's not worth the 4%.
There are a handful of students at Polo Ridge and Elon Park, who are third, fourth, and fifth graders who are bored silly. They are ready for not Math 1, but Math 2. And the school isn't allowed to teach either Math 1 or Math 2. So there are a few teachers in that area who are working to try to figure out how those kids can get to community
What grades were
houses.
those students again?
3, 4, 5.
I'm sorry?
They're in fifth grade, and they're ready for Math
3, 4,
1?
5.
Math 2, you said.
Math 2? Would you offer Math 2 to students like that? Would you be able to do something like that? I mean, is that a need that you think you could fill?
I've offered calculus to 3 10-year-olds in the last 8 years, and they've all been the very top student in the class. University calculus to 3 10-year-olds.
I feel stupid now, but
Well,
There are I would call these outliers, right?
Yeah,
They're
pretty much.
definitely outliers.
For sure.
Yes, yes.
And let me say, they're probably not our core target.
right. I was gonna say, like, are you purporting to want to serve those?
Yeah, no, that's
students?
not our core. So we're talking about, but at these schools where you may have 80%, or certainly some of these public schools in our area, I know that at least 30, 40, 50% are gifted identified. You may have 1, maybe 2 gifted kind of support staff at that school. There's no way that they can really give all those students the sort of differentiation they need, right? And so a lot of those students are being served just fine with the amount of enrichment they get. But I'd estimate probably 5, 10, 15% of that population would love to do something above grade level. They're
What's
ready
the
to do
Metrolina wait list? Do you know that?
Metrolina wait list. So if Metrolina wait list is around 30 to 40 for about 30 seats in kindergarten. So I added up the wait lists for all of the gifted schools in the area, and it's 250 at kindergarten wait list. So we're talking about 50 seats in kindergarten. So there's definitely an express need from that perspective. We
Okay.
also did a survey, and we found 30 to 40% of survey respondents of a much broader swath would be excited for a TD/gifted option.
Okay, then tell me why you picked 68% as your goal in
I'm
your
not
first
sure.
year.
I'm not sure where the 68% is. Is it 68% of
Proficiency.
Proficiency on the EOG.
Because I'm looking at Hawk Ridge is at 86, Polos Ridge is at 87, Providence Springs at 91. And you're telling me that these kids are already, you're talking 80% of these kids are identified gifted.
So I see our student proficiency goals, and the measure is the percent of students exceeding grade level proficiency in year-end math or reading. So we ramped that up from 65% in the first year, just because we don't know what's going to happen with the school, up to 90% by year 5. So our goal is, there's a ramp just because to give us some room to run, but our goal is to get to 90% above grade level.
So are you saying 4s and 5s then, not 3s?
So you're saying
Well,
CCR.
Well, he's basing it off of MAP.
That's MAP. It's not EOG.
It's MAP.
So it's
MAP.
much more granular.
Okay.
Yeah.
MAP can be sometimes they can predict lower, where they'll tell you the kid's above grade level and then
When
they
they're
won't
not.
pass the EOG.
They can't pass the EOG.
So, I think
that's
you would
what
want
we
to
have an
revise
idea.
that to the 65% college career ready
Yeah.
on
We're happy
EOG.
we're happy to take your advice and revise the goals. I think maybe more salient is our growth goal, right? We want to have 90% of our students growing more than the national norm on any of those measures.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that sort of normalizes for potentially different starting
Right.
points for those students. So that's where we're focusing, right? I think both at either end of the extreme, and I think we'll see students at those extremes, right? Looking at student proficiency is just not a great metric, right? So for the student who's already coming in above grade level, why, we could send them home early every day and meet the student proficiency target. So that's not really a good measure of our school. So we're going to look at growth, and we want to really dig granularly into the growth. So, we're going to be looking at MAP and all those different dimensions. And again, we're happy to take advice from more experienced charter leaders on different ways to look at metrics. But that was one that bubbled up in our early examinations of it.
Okay, I have on the org chart that you had a CEO and then a head of instruction. Is that the administrator and assistant administrator?
So as we looked at different documentation about board and charter governance, one of the things that became clear is running a charter school, and I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, is not like running a public district school, right? The head of that school is not only responsible for what's happening within the school walls, but they're running a business, right? There's business management, financial management. You're managing a board. You're doing marketing. A much greater responsibility for operations than most principals have. And so what we thought was maybe we'll find somebody who can do all that and be a great kind of principal, head of school who can drive the curriculum and manage teachers. Great, if we can find someone. Those two roles could be merged. But we thought we'd give ourselves a little bit more flexibility by splitting those roles and finding somebody who could be a great liaison with the board, run the business, as well as somebody who probably would come from a more traditional assistant principal sort of background in an elementary school who could step in and be the head of instruction. So that also gives us a little bit of flexibility. You know, if someone's sick or on vacation, we have a backup of someone who's a senior leader for the school. But that's the idea, to split those two roles.
Would it be a co-model? Because they're both currently slated to be.
It wouldn't be a co-model. I mean, we as a board, we could be open to it, but what we proposed was that the CEO is the direct report to the board, and that all the other staff do report to the CEO. But it would be obviously a very senior position who would probably be participating in board meetings and reporting to the board. But the formal line would go to the CEO.
I might recommend you consider, if you gain approval, to think hard about that position. I think particularly for a school that requires the uniqueness and clarity of vision, I think you're going to want to concentrate a lot of the authority and the vision in one person that really can kind of both reports to the board and has the instructional chops to run the instructional program. Because I think launching and having like two people that are, it's just complicated, and the school's not that big, so it's a lot of work, and you could probably find that person for $80,000 to $90,000 that has the capacity to do both of those things and do them really well, and also is able to really be the standard bearer of your vision in a very clear way. That when you divide it between two people, particularly at the beginning, I think it's difficult. You just hire an operations person underneath that person to do the dirty work. So.
I appreciate the advice. We'll definitely look to see if we can find that talent.
All right, so why don't we discuss a little bit?
I like it.
I'm really intrigued by the school, somewhat selfishly, because this whole idea, how do you serve all kids the full gamut, that's something we all struggle with, and if they came up with something that actually worked really well, that would be awesome. And I'm way more confident when I hear them talk that they know what they do know what they're talking about, as opposed to what I saw in the app. I didn't have that same sense of confidence when I read the app, but hearing him talk about it, they obviously do know what they're talking about. It's not a lot of kids. In the area where they're going, whether or not the kids are actually gifted could be up for discussion, but their parents think they are. So I don't think they're gonna have a hard time finding 300 kids there.
Yeah, I appreciated that different we didn't hear from all the board members, but I felt like different board members were able to talk about the application, able to talk about the curriculum. I appreciated the gentleman who chatted, who was, when I was role modeling being a parent or whatnot, he was able to say, he kind of pushed back and said, you just being around really outstanding students isn't actually all the most important thing. That having that clarity of what's important is really important. I think parents actually respond to a clear vision and expectation. My concern is kind of what you're saying, but I would say my my concern is if you try to be all things to all people, and I think that's one of the issues that frankly we have in traditional public education. Okay, we're going to try to, the schools have to do everything. And so we lose sight of, okay, what's the focus? And I worry a little bit, and you know, frankly, I'm not necessarily against an interest test because I actually think that can be an equalizer for low-income, poor children who are trapped in.
But it isn't. The tests that they use always under-identify
Right.
low
Sure.
income and children of color.
Sure, or even, you know, for upper grade students that are, find the students that are getting fives that are in lower performing schools and who have the capacity but just need to, but are trapped in an environment that is not. My point is a test can be an equalizer, whereas in the absence of a test, and there's been some debate about this around SATs and things like this, in the absence of an absolute standard, people who have resources and money are always going to beat the system, without a in the absence of an actual standard. So I don't know. I don't want you all to. I think you want to be really clear about what it is you're doing, what it is your program, and there's some aspects of this application. I think whoever is going to take on the mantle of being the vision bearer is going to have to really get clear on, okay, we will provide this, but you need to understand what is actually going to happen in our classroom, and you need to decide, parent, do you want your child in this environment? You need to be okay with. Because let's be clear, traditional public schools are doing this. They say this is a magnet school. Josephine Dobbs in Durham, you have to have a recommendation. They don't take students that have discipline problems. I mean, none of that gets reported in the public, but that is happening. They are screening students in traditional public schools, and then basically saying charter schools are selecting students, and we know that is not the case. So I think it's okay to be confident and clear about what your vision is, and I'm supportive of this because I think this is innovative. This is someone saying, hey, we're trying to do something totally different. There is not how many gifted charters in the state? One. So okay, this to me is innovative. I'm just excited to. I'm expecting some questions from the state board, but I think this is innovation.
I move we recommend Telra Institute for ready to open status.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congrats.
Thank you for knowing your application.
I mean, really knowing it.
Seriously, no, and I appreciate that too.
Knowing what your vision is.
Y'all are an impressive group.
Yeah, and being able to explain it to people who don't know what it is. I appreciate that a
Also
lot.
listening and
Taking feedback.
You have a
Yeah.
MacBook, don't you?
I do.
Oh my gosh. Steven.
I have an old one, so my charger won't work with yours.
One more thing.
No, but I'm just.
I hope you will get a copy of Beast Academy.
I looked it up already.
Please. It's
All right,
very
so
exciting.
we got lunch, and why don't we say, can we plan to start Clara Science at 12:45 so we're not too far behind? Does that sound good?
And whenever I hear a good idea, I'm like,
Did you? I read
yeah, it's